This is some of my films here. When I used to put on the shows, these are the 400-foot reels. This happens to be the 1975 WWBA Jamboree with Charlie Pride. And these are Super 8mm sound films. But anyways, and of course I got the 1983 or 82, I can't quite read that, 82 trip down to Florida. The first time I ever flew on a plane and took movies out the window of the plane, so forth. I don't even think he can do that anymore. Yeah, that's the 1982 Florida vacation. That's the very first year that I ever flew. This one's in 1974 when I went to Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. It's a silent film, and that's all I had on that reel. And that's the one where I used to use. This is the one where I used to use that rig I told you about with the slide narration. Well, what I did is I had a recording when this was playing. I had a recording of the tour guide as he went and took the group of us through the caverns and described. So it's in his voice, and it was on a separate recording. So in other words, it wasn't necessarily synced into this. What I had here, I don't know if you can really see that, it's a Sony TC55 cassette recorder. Sony model TC55. One of the best little portable tape recorders I've ever had. The only thing better than this, or somewhat bigger, was a JVC 1636, which I sold years ago to a good buddy of mine who to this day is still using it. But anyways, this was good. The only problem now with this thing is there was a motor problem. I tried to fix this, and at the time it didn't need belts, and the motor kept changing speed. So there was a problem with it, and being solid state, I had much better eyesight 35 years ago. But anyways, I couldn't do anything with it. And it had good response. I mean, you know, you had a little level meter. You had a little level meter right here. I don't know if you can see that. Makes it worse even. Anyways. And you had your switch to shut the motor off. So you kept the recorder in pause when you wanted to do that. Anyways, I'd have this thing. I took the strap off of this. I'd have this over my shoulder. When I went down into the caverns, I'd put the record on, so I'd record the commentary of the tour guide. So this happens to be a very good recorder, but today's standards it's pretty heavy. And it had a slide-out battery pack that you'd put 4 AA's in. It also took rechargeables, and the cord and everything I got in the box down here. Good little recorder. It's just that now I think it's got motor problems and everything else. I also have another recorder. Here is one that I also used to take with me a few years later. It's a pearl quarter. Takes the little micro cassettes. I have the worst luck with cassette tape recorders, motors going in this. Now, I paid like $200 for this on time payments, the only way I could afford it. It's a pearl quarter. Let me get a little closer look. No idea if this is in focus. I've been using my digital camera lately, and my last recordings, the white balance was set for tungsten. This is fluorescent in the shop up here. So that's why everything was blue. But here's the top view of the pearl quarter. You had a microphone here, you had your pause switch here, and your rewind and so forth here, and even had a volume control right here that you can adjust your volume with. And a nice little recorder. You had a little lever, and there's the battery pack here. It took 2 AA's in this particular one. But yes, it's a good little recorder. It's just that this started giving me motor problems too. Of course, it's no good for music, but it was excellent for commentary. Getting back to how I synchronized the film when it was silent to a cassette. In the early years, 1971, I believe the first year I went to the Wheeling Jamboree in the Capitol Music Hall in Wheeling, West Virginia. It was 1970. That was the first year I went down there, and I went down there with a cassette recorder. That's all I had. I didn't have a movie camera. I did have a movie camera, but I didn't take it into the Capitol Music Hall. 1971 is when I started recording movies. Well, anyways, the films were silent. You know, most of the films were silent. So here you have these entertainers that are singing, but you got no music. Well, I had a tape recorder with me. What I had done is I took this little PA horn, put it up to the tape recorder that I was using to let me know when to start it. So when the film goes, you'd hear beep, 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 and then the projector would kick in. Okay? That would tell me the third beep, turn the projector on to play. Okay? And then the lips were never perfectly in sync. It was impossible. But it was a Rube Goldberg thing that I did in the very early 70s with the movies. And then it was carried over to that unit I made. And naturally, that unit was designed to change slides. But the same token, that little tone that I'd hear, you'd hear it when I'm playing the movies. It'd go beep, 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 and then I'd go boom, turn the projector on, and the whole reel, the entire reel of tape would be going, and when I'm ready to stop the sound, I'd stop the recorder, the player, and, you know, if it got into a different, here's a real full one here, wait until it got to the point where I'm ready to have more sound again, then the little beeps would come back in telling me, come on now, old goat, get going on the projector, and boom, click it on. It was a mongrel setup, but I'll tell you what, it worked, and it's better than watching entertainers singing on stage with no sound at all. I could probably show you a little better here. Here's I had to put some tape on here to hold this cover closed. Anyways, here's my 8mm, regular 8mm projector. I love these manual threading jobs, you know. Anyways, I'd have the tape recorder going, and when the recorder go beep, 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 the third beep, be ready to fire off the projector. It was ready to start at the proper frame. In other words, the film was ready to coming in through the gate, and it was ready to hit the film just getting ready to go into the gate. So that told me start at that point, and then to flip it on. Well, anyways, it was never in perfect sync, but it was close enough. And it wasn't so bad when the fiddle players were up there because, you know, I was quite a ways away, so I didn't have a zoom on that camera at that time. It was an regular 8mm camera. But so you couldn't really tell. But when somebody was singing, a lot of times you could see they were singing, but their mouth wasn't moving. Well, there was no way I could ever overcome that problem. I tried and never could get it perfect. But it was certainly better than watching silent films. And when it came to a documentary like The Caverns or Fort Ligonier in Ligonier, Pennsylvania, places like that, because I used to go through Pennsylvania going to Wheeling, so I'd make all these stops along the way because I'd have like a 10-day vacation. Hit the Jamboree on a Saturday night, of course, but before then, I'd hit these places going down. Anyways, when I used to shoot the silent film, that was how I did it, with a tape recorder running. There was some times that I just ran the film with nothing and just described, well, this is this and this and that. But I tried to make it as professional as I could on a poor man's budget. I used to have everything in a logbook. You don't really think you can actually read that too well, and you don't really have to. It's more of my reference than anything else. But I used to have the front of the reel cans marked with a code. Like this particular code is DK. So DK, well, this happens to be some family things, of course, and with those I didn't use the cassette soundtrack I just described, and being family movies, everybody knew who it was anyways, and we just watched them and, you know, and enjoyed watching stuff that happened years ago. So I described what each reel had on it. Rather than try to label it everything here, I just put a code like code DK. Well, this is code DK, so this is going to have such and such of information on it. Then the next one I'd coded BQ. So BQ would have, in this case, Doc Williams Show with Gus and Joanne Thomas, April 16th, 1972. Watertown Senior High School. Then it would have a little thing I did with the prisoner's story and stuff like that. And all these things were just kind of like Rube Goldberg presentations that the family kind of liked, you know. So I enjoyed doing these things. A lot of guys would be out there boozing it up, throwing their money away on cancer sticks and everything else, whereas, and partying and everything else. Well, this was what I did, besides the electronic hobby and, you know, and everything. And primarily my, my movies and stuff like that were kind of geared for family stuff and whenever I went out on vacation. I wasn't one of these guys that would go out and take, you know, flowers, and I'd done a few, but, you know, some people are just like dedicated photographers that go out and photograph everything. I primarily did it, especially I was more into movies than actually still pictures, because to me movies are the closest thing to bringing things back to life, because you've got the movement there, you know, and it's very, it's something you just, you know, it's the closest you're going to get to actually having the person there. I mean, I've got my grandmother, I got my aunt and my uncle, and I don't have my dad because he died in 1963, and I got my first movie camera, my Brownie-Funsaver hand crank 8mm movie camera in 1964. There's a couple of videos on that, if anybody's interested in seeing them. And his Skyline Caverns, Luray Caverns in Gettysburg, all on here in 1972, and of course these are all silent. So I had all the highlight history of them. Highlight history being what the brochures had and what little reading up I did. There was no internet back then, so I did a little bit of reading and what the tour guides would say, and I put that all down on and discuss it on the thing. And there are a few little reels that really never got anywhere, like Catskill Game Farm and stuff like that, and these are things that really 3.5 minutes long are really not worth it. That's 1978. But you know, when I look at these things, I do write big here, but you know, down on the description here, I used to be able to read that, but you know, this happens to be September 28, 1974 WWVA Jamboree, using the Ectosound 130 movie camera, and the 130 did not have a zoom. It was good in low light. It had a special shutter. I think they call it a 230-degree shutter or something like that. Vaguely remembered. But anyways, it was one of the better movie cameras. You held it like this. It had a handle like this. It was a big clunker, you know, pretty good size. But it was silent.